That's very interesting. I guess we could move on a little bit and think about the services that you have accessed. You've obviously mentioned there were some gaps and some opportunities. Could you just take us through anything from home adaptations, wheelchair, employment, health and social care, anything that you've accessed since being diagnosed? And maybe comment on whether you might have accessed them earlier.
Actually, I think I possibly could have accessed them early, but I do feel that for the first year or so, I did definitely slip through the net. I called upon social services and told them what I would like them to do to the kitchen. And unfortunately, they sent somebody who started telling me they couldn't do something with a kitchen unit. And I think 19 years in flat pack kitchen.
I can see that contest there.
It's you know,
Yes.
more than raised an eyebrow. So I explained that he was wrong and we could do this. And so we applied for that. Initially, changes to the kitchen, to wire baskets. I can't reach. I have no reach at all. I can't. So the basket now comes out to me, so I can reach the items in the basket. And they altered the larder unit to my design. They altered one of the smaller units to my design and gave me a lower pull-out worktop as well, which has helped. As for other stuff, in the last few years I've been down to the Independent Living Centre. Not everything is suitable. You know, they talk about tilting kettles and things. Well, tilting kettles are okay if you can get your arms out to reach the kettle. And it also raises a kettle 2 or 3 inches. I need things lowering. So some of the adaptations were not suited, and so I have not actually taken them. I have since had a hands-free loo, which was installed last year, and a body dryer, because showering and bathing is difficult. I'm fortunate that I have a corner bath, so I can sit, and so long as I can rest my elbows on my knees, I can tend to wash my hair and so on. So I am still fairly independent, but I do require my wife's assistance 2 or 3 times a week, just to make sure I don't go too scruffy.
Yeah, but it's interesting, going back to what you said about professionals coming into your home, and I saw the smile on your face, and it's something I have heard before, that you have a past, you have a knowledge, you have a history, which, did you feel that was being ignored?
It was at first, and I explained that I know I'd had 19 years and exactly. I knew more about the kitchen units and the kitchen furniture, and so they asked for a second chapter call. It was a lot more sympathetic. He knew. He asked me first, and then he said, "Right then, what is it you want us to do?" So
you became a customer.
Yeah, that's right. I became a customer, and I talked them through.
Good.
You know, and so I got it to the spec that I wanted.
And going through the others, I mean, we looked at, obviously talk about information and the voluntary sector. Any contact with the voluntary sector, and at what stage did you realise there were agencies beyond health and social care that could work, and I think I've got to use the word work with you here, Mon. When did that happen?
I knew there was a regular monthly meeting of the MND Society at the Cherry Hill Nurseries, but I didn't choose to go, not because I thought I wouldn't get anything from them. I tend to think, well, I was trying to keep myself busy, and I was busy, and I'd been to the Butterwick Hospice once, and I said to the Butterwick Hospice, "This isn't for me yet." You know, they do some wonderful work, and I support the Butterwick Hospice. But there's a point where I think you should decide sensibly that yes, you can do this, or no, you can't. And I'm a big one for yardsticks. You know, I polished and buffed my wife's car about a year after I was diagnosed. And I did it the following year, and I did it the following year. And I tried it last year, and I got about half the car done. But my daughter had to come in and do the other half. But I do think that if you set yourself yardsticks, you can gauge. And in doing so, I think being a realist, you can come to terms with the fact that you have either deteriorated to a degree, or you've stayed the same. You know, or in some cases, I do think I look back and think I've adapted. I still do things. People say to me, "Well, how would you do that?" And I have to think twice. And then I'll say, "Well, I swing my arm, or I do this," and people look and say, "That's clever," and it's second nature now. But that is because it's come on me slowly. It is mostly upper limb. I haven't actually totally given up playing five. I actually played five-a-side football last Friday. I didn't tell the five-a-side lads for 2 years I want to get past my 50th birthday, and I did. Just before, but 4 or 5 of them knew before that. And until about two or 3 weeks ago, one lad said, "You got a problem with your arm, Martin?" And I thought, out of the sort of the 13 or 15 or so people who play on a regular basis, I thought, well, finally, Stu, you finally got it.
Yeah. But you mentioned these milestones, and quite often with the disease, people will say, because things can progress fairly quickly, you've got to measure and remeasure and remeasure. And I'm interested when you said, that's okay, because I can be more creative, or I can do something in a different way. So those kind of measurement, those yardsticks are quite important to you. You don't see them as a potential threat. Sorry, do you see them as a way of almost moving forward?
It's a case of moving forward, yeah. It is definitely a case of moving forward, adapt and move on. A few years ago, I met a chap in Lourdes, and unfortunately I'll be going to his funeral on Wednesday. He had a much more aggressive strain of MND, and yet he kept very positive to the end. He was he taught his trade. He was a builder and taught his trade. And when I see how vicious it's been with Paul, like I say, he's been buried on Wednesday, and he was only diagnosed. I think it'll be 3.5 years. Probably 3 to 3.5 years ago. I just count my blessings and think, right, what we're going to do now to move on.
And thinking about moving on, and in a way, health service, you mentioned you had contact in the early stages with the health service. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means at the moment? Any contact with care centre or GP? What does the health service mean for you right now? What's it giving you? And what?
Well, James Cook Health, the group there, were amazing from the offset, and put me in a 6-monthly plan, if you like. I used to refer to it as my MOT, a 6-monthly MOT. And one visit I would talk with the specialist, the next visit I'd talk with the team, and they've always been there. There's been everybody from speech therapists, dietitians, you know, they're all there if I need them. And only recently I've dropped that down to, it was originally once every 6 months, then it grew to once every 3 months when the hospital got more staff in. And I've since dropped back down to 6 months, because I actually feel now that maybe I'm taking up an appointment that could be better used for somebody else. But the hospital and their staff have always been very good, and have always kept me informed of what else I could not contact in the way of societies and so on.
So the care centre, if it wasn't there, what would have taken its place as far as you're concerned? Or would there have been anything that could have successfully given you what you're getting from the care centre? I
don't think there would have been anything that it gave me a very good sense of well-being, in so much as I would come out thinking that, well, I am handling this okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I had questions, they would answer them.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I probably, they had more questions for me, I think, than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a very good comfort factor.
That's excellent. We talked a little bit about social services, and can you tell us a little bit about what social services did for you in terms of support at home and with the family, and any access to the community, or what was missing? So describe what social care gave you.
Right. Well, the social services side is a bit of a black hole for me, because I tend to think that because I was initially self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
I slipped through the net. I seem to have to constantly be chasing for things. I was told by the James Cook in the very early stages that they would forward my information on, which they did.
Mm.
And I was also told that I wouldn't need a medical to get for the DLA, but I got called up for a medical.
Mm.
And I had to go for the medical and sit around, and I thought it was quite distressing, because I was thinking, well, I was told I didn't need this. Unfortunately for me, the doctor who was seeing me, once he read my condition, he flat refused to examine me and said it was a disgrace that I'd been made to go along for a medical, and he would be talking to, you know, the people involved and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on a disability living allowance on the lower level, because it was only
Mm-hmm.
mostly one arm. But every year thereafter, I've had to contest that. And I do think it was possibly because I was registered self-employed. I stayed self-employed because I tried to change my business into what's called a social enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to find somebody to make my units. And I thought, if I get somebody to make them, I could possibly work from home and just take a commission.
Yes, yeah.
And because of that, I think because of that self-employed status, I don't think I got the attention, or I don't think I got the care and the visits and such that I probably would have done had I just gone along, signed on the door and said, it's because I'm sick, I'm ill.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to a tribunal to get my DLA raised from the mid-rate higher. And again, somebody from James Cook Hospital, very, very supportive, came along and to fight my cause,
Give you some
in case I needed it for support. My blue badge, I couldn't get a blue badge. I was turned down 3 times for a blue badge because they didn't recognise, I think because they didn't recognise MND.
Yes, yes.
I think the whole structure is obviously set up, and I know from my quality assurance days, you'll have somebody who'll just look at which box being ticked. And if for some reason you fall in between the box, if you don't lay it on thick, you go in the low box instead of the higher box. Well, I've never been one to lay it on thick. I'm not sitting to say, and I'll say, well, look, I've got MND, you know, you need to look after me. That isn't my philosophy on life at all. And I do think that when it comes to tick boxes, MND seem to miss the mark a lot of the time, I think.